Good morning and welcome to the International Centre for Repossessions Law. My name's Douglas Shaw and I have been focusing on this area for the last 5 years. I'm originally from Scotland, but I've been working with the South African government, the South African banks, usually on the other side of a lawsuit, for the last 5 years, and over that time I've developed a system, a legal system, a situation of laws and procedures for the repossession industry, let's say. So in other words, a better way to do repossession. In the course of that, I've done a PhD, which is nearly finished, on that subject, where I've looked at repossession law and practice all over the world. And what I've found is that most countries, or some countries, have a piece of the puzzle, but nobody's got it 100% right. So what I'm doing now is I'm visiting various countries to consult and train and answer questions and work through issues around repossessions law. This is a hugely important area, a hugely political area in many countries, where thousands of people are getting their houses removed from them by the bank, being evicted from their homes unnecessarily. The key thing about our system is we reckon 90% of evictions, repossessions worldwide are unnecessary. There's other ways to solve the problem. And this can be in a way that's not very damaging to banks. So it's not as if banks won't want to lend under the new system. They will. And we also have, as part of our consultancy package, a bit of insight onto how to get banks to lend more, particularly to groups that you might wish to see more lending to, without having the problems that America had in their crisis. All these problems can be avoided. Now, the second issue in bank repossessions worldwide is the price that a person's house is sold for. So if somebody's got a home and it's sold by the bank, sometimes in some countries that property can be sold for 30% less, sometimes even 50% or 90% less in some countries. Now, that causes huge problems. It's very unjust. It causes a political backlash, and solving these problems is usually very politically popular. And it can be done in a way that isn't particularly onerous on banks, as I've said. So, I'm going to be in the region over the next few years. Every 6 months or 3 months, I'll be coming through and I'll be available to meet up with government officials, to do training courses, to work with the key individuals, to do consultancy, to assist governments with the process of changing the law. I'm an advocate, I'm legally trained. I've also been a management consultant for a period, so I understand the execution problems, the problems of actually getting things working in practice. I'm trained to some degree as an economist, and I was in investments for a long time, so I understand the bank's point of view, the way it works, the capital markets, that kind of side of things. And also IT. I've developed a few IT systems, not usually myself, but in conjunction with professional programmers and so on. And so sometimes it's a good idea that needs to interact with an IT system, or an IT system needs to go in, so I can also advise on that. So it's getting the whole package, mostly the legal changes, but also understanding the effects of these, what's actually going to happen in practice, what the political ramifications would be. So when I come into a country, practically speaking, I like to meet on this issue. It does vary where the responsible people are, but generally there needs to be somebody from the Department of Finance or Treasury. There needs to be who regulate banks, and generally I'd like to have the most high level players, like the Minister or the Director General, or at least the Deputy Minister or the Deputy Director General. And then I like to have somebody that's the actual person in the hierarchy that deals with that kind of area. So maybe in the UK it's the Financial Conduct Authority, there's a person that's in charge of that, which turns out to be the key person. Also, if you've got a Law Reform Commission or something like that, somebody from that agency should be at the meeting. The person from the Department of Housing, and sometimes also from the Department of Justice as well. So ideally a meeting with 10 people, maybe from the Board of Sheriffs, not initially with the banks until we have a policy in place. But maybe I should explain a little about how the process would usually go. So initially you put a policy together with the government, as many listeners will be well aware. Then you put that out for consultation, and that's the second stage at which you might want to have me around to consult. When the comments come back from the role players, the interest groups, etc. Sometimes, you see, every country is different. There's no one-size-fits-all situation, although there's many lessons we can learn from other countries. And so it's never a template situation. It's always a case of considering the issues, the state of that country. It sometimes is different from developing to develop to in between to transition. All different kinds of countries need different things, and every country's got a different legal system, which is also very important to take into account. So when all the comments come back, then we can put together a compromise or at least an answer to questions for the various interest groups that are making submissions. So it's generally not a huge thing. It's not like having McKinsey in for a year, which can be very expensive, or any one of these big consultancy groups. What we're talking about is coming in initially for a week or 2 weeks, talking to all the relevant people, and then actually putting together what we call proto-law. So it's actually like an act or a bill, but it's drafted. It's not obviously the final issue because it's often in a different language. It's usually in English. Sometimes you need to translate it, but also from a legal point of view, what we call the state law advisors here, but there'll be whatever the name of these people are, need to go through it and make it consistent with the existing law of your country, which we'll assist on, and also take into account the particular legal situation, style of drafting, etc. For your country. But we can work with them on that. But by the end of our process, you'll have a report, but more importantly, you'll actually have the law that you could very quickly go ahead and pass. So you get very clear and useful outcomes from this process. We already have draft laws that we've drafted for South Africa. We've got laws. The South African government, the Rules Board, has changed the law, partly, in a large part, I think, as a result of the submissions that we made to them. So you're not dealing with a complete blank page. There's other people that have gone through this process before. But to reduce the sufferings for tens, hundreds of thousands of people in your country, and at the same time boost lending. We don't think this will reduce lending. In conjunction with some of our other ideas, we can actually boost lending quite substantially, so to make this process actually good for the banks. And by boosting lending, we can boost economic growth, we can boost the general feeling of well-being in the country, and do it in a way that's actually just and sustainable. So we have several people that represent us in various regions. So if you'd like to talk to them, you can, or you can talk to us directly. You can get me at douglas@icrl.coza, or just go to the website www.icrl, International Centre for Repossession Law is what it stands for, .coza. You'll be able to see more about us, more about me, more about what we've done in South Africa, and you can email me or one of my staff, and we can start corresponding. So it was good to be able to speak to you in this manner, although it's one way at the current time, and I hope to be dealing with you more in the future. Thank you.